You've had such a successful career starting in investment banking and then going to growth equity. Could you please explain in the most basic terms what the difference between IB, investment banking, private equity, and growth equity are?
Sure. So I'll start off with the investing side. Private equity is basically investing in any private company. So this is any company that doesn't trade publicly on the stock market. So actually, venture capital, growth equity, buyout, these are all forms of private equity that you can find. Investment banking, on the other hand, is kind of separate, all part of like the same ecosystem of supporting a company through its life cycle. But investment banking is really advising companies on critical milestones that they'll face in their life cycle. It might be a company that wants to raise capital through a fundraise, like a Series A, B, C, D. Or it could be a company navigating an exit process. So it might be a company that wants to sell to a strategic buyer or another private equity firm, or it could be a company that wants to go public. And so investment bankers really serve as advisors to walk them through how that all works and also manage that process so management teams can really focus on their day-to-day of running a business.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess to dive deeper into the private investing side, I would think about it more like in terms of how a company progresses through its life stages. So for example, if a company is first starting out, they need a little bit of money to get the business started and find product market fit. In that case, they'll raise venture capital funding. Once they've achieved product market fit but want to expand into specific products or services or geographies, that's when a growth equity firm can step in and really help them get to the next level, whether it's resources to get there, connections to the right people or advisors, or it could be helping the management team become a little bit more sophisticated, bringing in the right people. The buyout piece of this ecosystem is when a company has hit a stage where it's a lot more stable, might not be as high growth as a venture or growth stage company, but there are potential efficiencies that they can make, whether it's through cost cutting, changing out the management team, things like that, where a buyout firm will get interested and put on some debt on the company and help fix it up.
I like thinking about it in terms of stage of company and also potentially how much money they're raising or I guess trying to sell for at the very end. So like venture capital, it's like pre-seed, seed, Series A. And then where does growth equity hits on Series?
Growth equity is a little bit of a grayscale. So there's some firms that will define themselves as venture growth, where they might extend into like Series B, C. Others might be late stage growth or growth buyout, where you'll see elements of venture or private equity depending on what their angle is and what they see as opportunity in the growth investing space. So there's no clear definition, and it really takes a lot of time to talk to people who work at these firms to understand how they think about their investment mandate.
It's a bit confusing because I like how you laid it out because it's less confusing, but it's the terminology is confusing because the overall umbrella is private equity, which includes venture capital, growth equity, and then buyouts.
Yes.
But when I think about private equity or when people talk about private equity, they mainly focus on the buyout piece.
Yep.
Is that confusing or is that just me?
It is confusing, and I would say when I was navigating investing recruiting, it was also confusing because you don't really understand how a firm thinks about their investments until you talk to them. But at like the broadest sense, people do define the investing world as venture capital, private equity, and growth equity is kind of that flavor in between, and that's why there's so much of a grayscale.
I see. And for investment banking, which is a different bucket from private equity, is investment banking also primarily focused on private companies?
It's actually on both. So investment banking, you could advise companies at like the growth stage, for example, who want to exit, but also large public mega cap companies that need support thinking through, what companies are interesting for them to buy, what trends are interesting in the market that they should be aware of, and if they're looking to raise debt, for example, to fund new initiatives within their business, these are all things that an investment banker can help with. And so investment banking is very much an advisory role, similar to consulting, for example. And so the range of companies that they can support is really a broad spectrum.
I see.